All right, Zig coming in on the top 10 of the show. We have the return of John Leon. John is a guitarist and composer extraordinaire. John's group, the Royal Arctic Institute, they are a cinematic, instrumental, post-jazz group based out of New York City, has a new album coming out, and he's on the show, returning for the third time to talk about it. Now, John's played with some legends. He's played with Roky Erickson, he's played with Summer Wardrobe, Abra Moore, just to name a few, but I think where his real musicality shines at its fullest is in the Royal Arctic Institute. The Royal Arctic Institute has a new album out. It's self-titled The Royal Arctic Institute. It's available on all streaming platforms. And we get into why this album, not the first one, but the fourth one, is self-titled into our conversation. We're going to listen to a tune from this record. This is He Died Fighting in Spain, The Royal Arctic Institute, off the album The Royal Arctic Institute. He Died Fighting in Spain, the Royal Arctic Institute, and the album, self-titled. It's available on all streaming platforms. I always look forward to talking with John. Every time I talk with John, he teaches me something cool. He shares with me a record or an artist I haven't heard, or something about one I have heard but didn't find that particular record or know that particular fact. He's just such a pleasure to talk with and to listen to. Anyway, friends, before we get to this conversation, if you hear anything you like, if you can rate, review, subscribe to the podcast at any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like John and sharing their insight with you. Now, without further ado, this is my conversation with the great John Leon. Now it's done, and I can just put it together. I can do the thing I've been trying to do for a year and a half.
So are you still in the stage where you don't ever want to hear it again?
Getting there.
Or are you kind of coming out of it? Yeah.
We're putting out a single from it with Pete Francis from the band Dispatch.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so I'm over that one, man. We've gone through umpteen mixes. Maybe the bass can go down. Maybe that should be pushed in the foreground. But you know exactly the bit, you know what I mean? And you're like,
Yeah, I do. And what's even sadder for me is that sometimes I'll get real obsessive about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And just when I'm the most passionate about it, the reality hits me. Not that many people are going to hear this.
That's the reality weight of as soon as you're about to let it fly.
Yeah, it's kind of that's the little hole that's going to let all the air out of the balloon, but slowly and sadly.
But you know what? I want to kind of jump into it here because
sure.
I saw, and this is real insider baseball for anyone who's trying to put anything out and trying to do the thing. There's this thing called Submit Hub, right? Where you submit your music to playlist. And I forget how, but I came across your profile on it. And I was just like, man, John is doing it because this is a whole insider trade baseball thing for music that is so soulless. You know what I mean? You're in there and you're trying to pitch it.
Wait a minute. You saw my profile in there?
Yeah. I don't know how, how there's chats on the side somewhere? Or
because you talking about this is the first that I've ever heard of this.
Maybe it wasn't you. Fuck. All right. Are you working with someone who's doing it?
No.
All right. Then maybe it's another John.
No, wait. Hang on. Are you talking about me or are you talking about the Royal Arctic Institute?
I swore it said you, and then it had Royal Arctic. Now that could be wrong. Maybe I'm tripping. But I was just like, man.
Well, either way, it's exciting.
Okay, maybe we can keep it out then. But yeah, I was just like, because Submit Hub is the most soulless. Pitch my song to playlisters to get on playlist, and you have a tweet's worth of text to be here's my song. This is what I'm doing. I think it fits your playlist because, and it's just these grand playlist judges are pass. pass, fail.
Oh my God, that sounds horrible.
Dude, it is. And like
that sounds brutal.
and like the whole thing is like the idea of it is kind of neat because you have like direct contact to these people, right? And they're all over the world, and like but the thing is, it costs like you get free credits, and then like you have to pay for credits. And if you pay for a couple credits, they guarantee a response. Like the playlisters must say why they didn't take it. Like they must give you feedback, which is also
oh my God.
like it's also the shittiest thing because they're like, your song is I don't know, too long. Like you're like, what? The first verse didn't get me as much as the rest of it. And you're like, what? You're just getting all these little like made up things for I didn't like it or I didn't listen to it.
I remember one time years and years ago when I was still really young and was really excited about doing music as a career. I'll never forget this older musician I knew. We were talking one night and he put his hand on my shoulder. I must have been like 18 or 19. And he said, "You can do this. You just have to remember that this is a career path where you have to be willing to have your heart broken every day." And it sent chills down my spine when he said that. But I get what he meant.
Yeah.
Especially when I hear stories like what you just told me about this thing that you found me on. I didn't do that. Somebody has stolen my identity.
or it could just be someone similar, like, like, oh, that sounds like a cool name, I'm gonna go with it, like, because I didn't like look, it wasn't a picture of you or anything, it was just the name.
Oh my God, wow.
So, and I to be fair, I don't remember if it said Arctic Institute. I just saw John Leon, I was like, okay, I know this guy. And like in my mind,
God,
it was like,
that's funny.
I was just like, okay, John's diving in deep too. I'm like, put it in the weird internet work that like I don't know if it works. I don't we're all trying to do it, and I was just like, yeah, if anything was proven to me, like, I mean, through our conversations, I'm like, John's the real deal, but I'm like, here we are trying to figure this out. Okay, cool.
Here we are at the end of all things.
But who was that musician?
Oh, it was just a musician I knew in my hometown. Yeah. He was just this older guy. What was his name? Arthur Passetti was his name.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think Arthur's still alive, and I think he's still there.
Was he like a guitar player, or was he a?
He was like a guitarist and bassist in the local music scene in the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's like those guys that like kind of, I mean, one, maybe we all aspire to be like in the local scene is but also like stuff like that's impactful, like kind of. And also like I received similar sounding advice early on, kind of too. And like you get, there's certain people that deliver it in like a don't go down this path, kid. You know what I mean? You don't want none of this gooey. Yeah. It makes all your good feelings and the bad feelings. Like
right.
But there's also some that just kind of like subtly, metaphorically plant this seed that kind of make whatever's about to happen slightly expected. It preps you in a way. And it sounds like Arthur really did, like, in that way, kind of prep you.
I'm not telling you to not do this. I'm just telling you what you might expect if you do. That's think about that for a minute. I mean, let's take growing up. If your parents tell you don't do that, right? Yeah. Chances are good you're probably going to do it. But if your parent says, I'm not telling you to not do that, but just so you know, if you do, this is what you might expect. I think you're a little more likely to pay attention to what they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, working around the youth all the time, every day, it's definitely I think if anything to kind of like even brush it past like youth, I think the power of metaphor I think was really what like really kind of impacts that, right? Even if it's like
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, it's like, even if it's not directly like don't do it, but like here's what just like kind of like it plants in your mind the ability to go down the problem solving yourself in a way, and which makes for difficult teaching because you got to come up with something that's a zinger. It's like a hook, a hook for a moral. Like we call it a metaphor. I don't know. Like,
I love that. A metaphor is nothing more than a hook for a moral. Wow.
all right,
That's kind of great. That, my friend, is your next concept record.
There we go. Yeah, that's not bad.
But I want to go back to your concept record for a moment. You mentioning that, the Albert Eiler part. I had never heard Albert Eiler until Mark Rebo did his Spiritual Unity record. Which was all his sort of tribute to Albert Eiler. He had Albert Eiler's bassist playing on it. No shit. And yeah, Henry Grimes. And so I read about that. I'd never heard of Albert Eiler, and I started listening to his record, Spiritual Unity, and oh my God.
Yeah. It's like
it's just phenomenal,
yeah. It's funny, like being a Cleveland guy, like his name like it would creep up in like things you would see like to sound even more Cleveland. I'm like, oh, I love Harvey Pekar. I love his like American Splendor stuff, and like he did these like reviews on stuff, and that name just kept creeping in. And like I've always been a super big Coltrane fan. Like I don't know what it is like for guitar players, but and maybe it's like because you ever watch any of the docs on Coltrane, like where like
I've seen a few years ago. Yeah,
there's one I can't remember what it is, but I love it because everyone's like Coltrane was spiritual, and they just kind of like everyone just harps on that, and you're like, yeah, I thought so too until everyone started harping. No, like. But no, like there is this thing like, and I still do, I don't know. Like there's this thing where like, and I think it's just how like he phrases is like much more just like, I don't know if it's like, it appeals to guitar in a way. Maybe like there's like this whole pentatonic theory with Coltrane that I've been learning. And like, maybe that's why like as a guitar minded person, like he sticks out a little more than like, Miles or somebody, you know what I mean? Or just, I don't know, I'm trying to think of in that little quadrant, like, but like and the musical genius of what he laid out, right? But anyway, so diving into him and knowing that there was this guy from Cleveland that had some type of influence on Coltrane, so it was just like a whole like rabbit hole for me. And my drummer is very very into Albert Eiler, and like it only he was showing Cody and I, my bass player, all this cool stuff. So it's a interesting world that I think is always kind of like of Albert, that you kind of like are like rabbit holed in through other paths.
See, until this conversation, I had no idea he was from Cleveland.
Yeah, if there's one thing I teach the world.
Yeah, that's incredible. But getting back to Coltrane and being guitar minded, one time I went to see Mark Rebo do his solo acoustic thing at the Kessler Theater in Dallas, Texas. And he walked out and sat down with his acoustic guitar and said, "This is a John Coltrane tune," and did a solo guitar version of Sunship. And just thinking about it right now, all the hair on my arms is standing up because, I mean, have you ever seen Rebo play?
I saw him for the first time a few years ago with with a trio at this place called the Bop
Mm.
Stop in Cleveland, and like I can't remember the name of the trio right now. I think it was a Ceramic Dog. No,
Oh
because
yeah,
no,
yeah.
Ceramic Dog has a singer. I
No,
can't.
not necessarily.
Okay, maybe I'm. I
Well,
think it was.
the reason I'm asking is
Yeah,
because his solo acoustic shows. I mean, anything he does is genius. But if you ever get an opportunity to see him do a solo acoustic show, that's magical
it's
because
definitely on my bucket list for sure.
he just goes into a zone and he never looks up, and he weaves. He'll take American standards and weave them in and out of each other within his sort of improvisation thing. I don't know how in the fuck he does it, but it's astonishing to watch. So if you ever get an opportunity to, that's the way to see Mark Rebo.
It's definitely on the list. Like even see with the trio, like it was profound. Like because I've listened to him and like it's in the Bop Stop. It's a small room where like and it's like designed in this way that you can be in the corner and still hear like a well mastered record. You know what I mean? Like it's just a really good sounding room. And see him rip with it was him, a drummer and a organ player, and just like it was unhinged.
Oh, you
Like
saw the jazz bins.
okay, there we go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're incredible.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, it was
Oh
just like,
man.
and that was the thing too. And like they did two shows, right? And like he came out and he said hi, and then they went into it. And like the only other thing he said is like I was personal friends with Harvey Picar, and then or I knew Harvey Picar personally, and like that was it. And I was just like, this is the coolest show ever, and just like I totally agree with like I mean, and it's in the concept or not in the concept in the context of a trio, like how he like interweavingly like went through kind of like a bop style into just like out there
Mm.
stuff, and then like in kind of a rock in this like there was some little spices, not much, like little flares here and there, but it was like so masterfully delivered. And like like out of the whole year, I think that was like the most like guitar inspired show. Like it, even just musicality, I was like, holy, you know what I mean? Like I may have put my phone on record and tried to like learn some of the licks, but it was really bad.
I mean, talk about a career. You
Right.
know,
Oh my God.
it's if you look at the scope of his career and everything that he's done in the past, I think he's like 70, 71 now. So if you look at everything he's done over the course of the past 45, 50 years, it's really astonishing.
And it's
The
all,
people.
yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, and it's all like every proj you can, it's not like rehashing anything. It's like you can tell he's like lost in it as well. You know what I mean? Like this is like
Yeah.
to want to cover like any of like like Albert Eiler's work on guitar is like it's a whole like it's the fluidity of like a true artist. Like
Let me ask this. This is the third time that you and I have had a conversation.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I look forward to it every time.
Oh God, me too. But one thing that you and I have not ever really delved into are our favorite guitar influences.
Yeah, okay.
Like who are some of your favorite guitarists?
That's for okay. So like I kind of going through just like the ones that have stuck with me from like the rip, right? Like you can't. Jimi
Hmm.
Hendrix is going to be inescapable. You can
Hmm.
never fully shake him. He's always in there. I've always liked so Jimmy and Stevie and like Joe Pass and Danny Gatton, definitely Mark Ribot, but that was like later on, and Django Reinhardt, John Butler, Ben Harper for like lap steel stuff, and like
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of like who those are kind of like a fair amount. Like I'm trying. There's because I also play lap steel and like
Hmm.
open tune
Hmm.
guitar, so I kind of dive into different niche realms with those guys. So like I like Warren Haynes on or Derek Trucks, but like I mean like those are just like I would like to learn one lick, you know. And also I think like as far as just like musicianship, some of the most profound musicians for me, maybe not on guitar, have been like Victor Wooten and
Hmm.
Kenny Warner and like toes on the tip of my tongue right now, and I totally skipped. And like Coltrane, Nyler, and like Miles. But yeah, so that would be my ramble of the answer to that. Now, if I rebutted it to you,
Oh, okay. Well, George Harrison. George Harrison. Yeah, because I think that's where it all started for me when I was a little kid. My dad is a huge Beatles fan, and so when I was just a little kid, he would play Sergeant Pepper and the Magical Mystery Tour records, and so I think that was my first sort of exposure to guitar music, and so George Harrison was a huge influence. Um, but of course, Django Reinhardt, Les Paul. It's been said that
oh yeah,
Les Paul was the American Django Reinhardt.
he he's ripping. Tiger Rag, man.
Yeah,
Like
of course.
yeah.
Yeah, and so Mark Rebo was a huge influence, as well as Bill Frisell, of course. Um, but another one that I really loved is Richard Thompson.
The
Are you familiar with Richard Thompson's playing?
I am I thinking like he's a singer songwriter, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then yeah, yeah. Like I've kind of always been like introduced to him like as a songwriter. So I haven't dove in too deep, and I was bummed because like when I was, I think he runs all these songwriting courses, and like where's he out of? Is he out of the UK?
Uh, well, he's British. I think
Yeah.
he lives here now in
Okay.
LA. But
Because like he played at the Kent stage, and I totally slept on it and didn't realize it.
oh wow,
Yeah, I was like,
oh wow.
yeah.
So he's um the record that I would encourage you to listen to is called Shoot Out the Lights. And so back in the day, he was in this 60s British group called Fairport Convention. And after that, he had a duo with his wife for many years, Richard and Linda Thompson. So in 1984, they were making the record Shoot Out the Lights, and they were also going through a divorce
Oh,
at the same time.
oh my god.
And the cover to the record is awesome. I'm going to
Okay.
let you look at it
Okay.
yourself. But his guitar playing, he doesn't come from a blues tradition. He comes from a Celtic tradition. And with most guitarists, I can listen to what they're doing. And even though I can't do what they're doing, I can visualize how they're doing it on the fretboard, right?
Right.
I can't with him. He's one of those guitarists where I have no idea how he's doing what he's doing. The voicings that he uses, the licks and hybrid finger style that he uses for his stuff. It's frightening. It's very frightening and just incredibly inspirational. I love his stuff.
Well,
His songwriting is great as well.
yeah, yeah. That's a crazy. Oh my god, I can't wait to check out that record. I'm gonna text you when I see that cover. Like,
Shoot out the lights. And the song Shoot Out the Lights, he has two solos in it.
okay.
And both are just phenomenal. And you're gonna be blown away. And then I'm going to encourage you to listen to all of the live versions of that song that are on a bunch of different live records that he has. And those two solos within the song just blow your mind.
Okay, I'm gonna guess that the live cuts are like just vamping on however sick this thing is, and like totally okay, sick.
And he's one of the things that I love about him is that he is primarily a Stratocaster player.
Yeah.
And he, within being a Stratocaster guy, he stays in the two position. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that kind of like out of phase.
The out of phase, nasally sort of. It sounds gross but beautiful at the same time. You know, that nasal tone. Yeah, that he stays in that most of the time, and it has this very beautiful, distinct guitar tone. He's a monster.
So one thing on that, that kind of switching over to like what you're doing now. One thing I love that you do is you post these just kind of like these guitar videos, right? And like you were talking about that exact position on the Strat, and I'm like, that's the spot. You know what I mean? Did Richard Thompson's like playing like lead to trying that out and like being like, this is a spot, or was it kind of like a recognition of I hear where he's at? Like from own self-experimentation?
I think a little bit of the latter, because another record that depends on that specific Stratocaster sound is the first Big Star record.
Okay. Yeah.
So I knew that sound. I knew that sort of like funky, mid-rangey, out of phase sound. But it wasn't until I started listening to Richard Thompson where it was real obvious that, that's the connection that I'm making here. It's really beautiful. Yeah, it's really, really beautiful. So he's been a huge influence. Like I said, Bill Frisell. Another guy, there's a great New York guy named Stephen Ulrich. Do you know of Big Lazy?
I don't know of Big Lazy, but I feel like I've read Stephen's name either like on
he put out a record a few years ago of all the music that he composed for that NPR show This American Life.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So maybe that's all right.
Mm-hmm. Well, he has a trio called Big Lazy, and they're sort of a instrumental film noir type thing. Okay. And he's really good. When I first moved to New York, I took some guitar lessons from him. Yeah. And he's a sweetheart of a guy, a really great teacher. So yeah, I would encourage everyone to check out Big Lazy.
I'm writing that one down too, man. I love it. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So like, okay. So one other thing, kind of like, I wanted to ask about, because I was diving into it on my own, and then like I came across one of your videos, the Major 7.
Yeah.
And like finding these spots where the Major 7 kind of like, because on the guitar you have that beautiful ladder stack, you know what I mean, like going down, like it's a very like nice arpeggiated phrase, right? So you in this video, this little video lesson that you were doing, you were talking about placing the Major 7 in places that it didn't belong. Can you kind of talk about where this like experiment came from? Like what players kind of made this stick out, or was this like, just experimenting on your own?
This was just me playing at home. And like, for instance, I'm trying to think. I remember doing that video, but say, for example, that you play like a C major 7. What would the relative minor of that be, right? That would be A minor.
Right.
But instead of going from the C major 7 to an A minor, go from the C major 7 to an A major 7. And it sounds so wrong, but I love it. I like things that sound wrong. I like stuff that sounds kind of seasick.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why, I mean, one of the reasons that I was attracted to learning to play pedal steel is that it's such a beautiful instrument, but you can also do some things with it that can sound very ominous and sort of disquieting and sort of seasick. I love that, you know. I like books that are really sad.
It's, you know,
So
sorry.
if you can make something sound wrong, then it's at least kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because like, so with the major 7 thing, I was diving into this lesson on Bernie Ketzel, right? And he would do these like quick arpeggios, and like I think I stumbled across this lesson somewhere on YouTube, and it was a really interesting thing to point out. And like with the major 7, if you go up one extra note, so like up to the with the I'm trying to think of the inversion, going like with the root on the E string, right, where you got that ladder shape.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you like arpeggiate it and add, the 9 on top and come back down, and if you go down a step, so you get this minor 9 chord from the root of the D, right? D string. Like, and as a visual example for anyone who's listening, they're like, "What?" But like, if you
what is he talking about?
Right. If you go back on the root from where your pinky's at on that major 7 stack, and you can run this minor 9 chord, and like it basically was like the third of the major 7, right? So it's like E minor 9 on C major 7, and it was like it was like, it's really cool because like it was just one of those like little theory tricks where you're like, that fits in C, that fits in E, and it's all the same shape, and you can phrase with it, and like the whole idea of like kind of connecting these like things, like sometimes when like the thing that doesn't sound right sounds right in a way because it's like mathematically equating to like, this is okay, you pass B minus, like, you know what I mean, like
Oh, that's a wonderful way to look at it. I love that.
You know what I mean? But also it, like, when you place those things in those interesting ways, it does make that kind of like, if you study stuff long enough, it becomes a pattern. So it becomes exciting to hear like it disrupted, and like I think the listener takes that in too, just in a way that a musician wouldn't like verbally explain. You know what I mean? Like they're like, that part sticks out. I don't know why, but then it goes here. Like, and like I feel like it just, as you go down the musical rabbit hole, you would, in a way, trained to avoid that, but the guys we all admire totally do that. Like,
I feel sad that I never learned to read music.
Yeah.
No, I said we can bring this back to what you and I were talking about at the very beginning today, when we were talking about, if your parents tell you to do something, chances are really good that you're going to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, my parents implored me to learn to read music. And it was one of the biggest regrets of my life, was that out of that immature, childish, petulant sort of what's the word I'm looking for?
Rebellious
kickback of a kid. I avoided learning to read music because I was being told I needed to. And man, if I could go back, that is, I'm very blessed in that I can honestly say I don't have any regrets in life except that. That's the only thing that I would go back and do different is I would have learned to have read music notation. I can read chord charts all day. I have a relatively decent knowledge of um, music theory, but um, if you put a piece of sheet music down in front of me, I'm worthless.
I
feel very
totally relate to that because it's a guitar player thing. It's a guitar player thing, and like it's a stereotype and a joke amongst the academic musicians of the world, and they earned it. They got it. Good on you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not wrong. But it's just like so going through school, like it was a basic. I had to like put the like step back and like learn to read Mary Had a Little Lamb, and like at the pace of just stuff like that, but at the pace of like somebody who's reading like this, you know what I mean, like, and like I'm not much faster than that, and like and I'm okay with that because I can look at it and figure it out slowly, and when I have like an hour or two to do it. Now if you put me on the gig and like read that and I'm going to have to do homework beforehand. But like...
Were you using the Mel Bay book?
For guitar, I did have that, but this was like... So like years later, I was just going off the real book, just trying to learn tunes and like learn the sight read. I also got this where'd it go? This old book, and it really kind of did help a lot. It's called Rhythms. Rhythms Complete by Dr. Charles Coyne and Bugs Bauer. Okay.
God, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's an old book of just like rhythm exercises for any instrument. And it goes from just like basic quarter note type things into like dotted and like crazy syncopated rhythms and stuff. It's just a way to practice reading rhythms, and it's set to a melody too. So it's like it's a solid. I just would work my way through that, and I'm still horrible at it. I'm a music teacher. Like I'm.
I was using the Mel Bay book when I was a kid. That was what my first guitar teacher tried to get me to do.
You read each string, right? And you're like, here's the E string.
Yeah. And I just wasn't having it, I was like, I want to be Brian Setzer. I don't want it.
Yeah, Brian Setzer. What another influence to put in there, dude. That guy too, man. What a way to incorporate like rock and jazz and like in the coolest way possible.
Well, he was the reason that I started playing when I was a kid.
Yeah.
MTV and the Stray Cats. I thought that I wanted to be him when I grew up. I was probably like 8. And so I wanted to be Brian Setzer. And my parents got me a guitar teacher, and bless his heart, rightfully so, he was trying to teach me to read music out of the Mel Bay book. And I was watching MTV, wanting to have a leather jacket, and to be able to play that kind of stuff. Here's a funny part about that, the Stray Cats thing. My dad plays guitar as well. And so in the 80s, when that started happening, he got a Gretsch hollow body, and that became his sort of love. And so by proxy, I had a bunch of Gretsches, and really always felt a very strong affinity with them. And now, today, when I finish talking to you this afternoon, I've made an appointment. Yeah, it's crazy. I have to make an appointment. I've made an appointment to go test drive a Gretsch Duo Jet in Brooklyn.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
And so So that's frightening because my biggest fear is that I'm going to get there and that I'm going to just fall in love with it and then have to figure out how I'm going to pay for
I have a feeling what's going to happen is
it. I have a sneaking suspicion I'm probably going to end up with that guitar today. But I love Gretsch guitars. Do you have any experience playing with Gretches?
I only through one of my dear friends. They have two, and
Uh-huh.
like one that's kind of like a cheaper model that's like the bright orange, looks like a Brian Setzer
Uh-huh.
one, and then this mint green one that's really big and like. I wanted to track some stuff on it, but like I didn't want to take the responsibility of being like I'm gonna bring it back. You know what I mean? No, nothing happened to it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's when the world decided to catch fire. But like, so only through friends and like, but they do. There is something to that. Like, it just kind of screams that rock and like jazz type. Like, I know, and I definitely think the world has been like stained with Brian Sensor's like a influence on that guitar. But man, it's a ripper.
Sure, sure. They're such complex instruments. They have such a complex tonal range, especially those hollow bodies. Um, Gretsch guitars, or the original Gretsch factory was in Brooklyn, and then I don't know the entire history of Gretsch guitars, but I do know that in the 60s, when the Monkees model became available, when the Monkees TV show was going on, Gretsch made a Monkees model. And all of a sudden, everybody went Gretsch crazy and they went into mass production. And so around that time in the mid 60s, their production got so big that the quality control was not necessarily there. So you can find a lot of 60s Gretches that are kind of just not great. And you're kind of you're trying to find a needle in the haystack for the really good ones from that era. But now Fender owns Gretsch, and they do all of these wonderful instruments in their custom shop. So the ones now are typically pretty good, but boy, the ones in the 60s can get really squirrely.
Yeah, and that's as the mindset is like the more vintage, right? The guitar, the better it is. So that's like without any research or dive into it. But that's and one other thing to kind of jump back to what you're doing, like with these videos
Mhm.
and stuff too. You do these like you were talking about the one guitar that I can't remember. It's your heritage guitar and
Oh
the
yeah,
the
yeah,
the history
yeah.
about it from Kalamazoo and I like just stuff like that is so awesome, man. Like
Those are really great guitars. Um,
like
I actually ended up selling that guitar.
yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah, not because it wasn't great. It is a
Yeah,
great guitar, but it it uh, it never really really bonded. We never really bonded.
got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was great, and I gigged with it and did recording with it and loved playing it, but there was never that sort of the minute I pick it up, it resonates through me.
yeah, yeah.
Um, all of my other guitars have that. The Heritage didn't. So as it stands right now, my guitars are the ones that I will never part with, you know?
Yeah. No, I feel that. I'm like kind of the same way with the ones I have that I've been gigging out with the most now. Like I have some better ones that like sonically don't kind of hit the mix for the live stuff, but like I grew up with them. I grew up playing them. So it's like one of those things, you know, I'm not going to get rid of this. And what am I going to get for this? You know what I mean? Like the only thing that matters is the story I have with it right now. And like, but I totally agree. There is this like kind of like emotional extension to some of these instruments. Like when like, you know what I mean? Like that make them resonate maybe more as a tool for expression for the player.
Absolutely. You know, all of my guitars now, well, with the exception, I have a beautiful old Gretsch Country Gentleman. I take that back. I have two really beautiful old Gretsch Country Gentlemans. But the rest of my guitars, the guitars that I gig with, they're all Frankencasters. They've all been built for me or pieced together, and they're magical for me. I don't think anyone would buy them if I tried to sell them, you know, like just because they're these sort of strange parts caster guitars. Do you know Eastman? Do you know those?
I've
Eastman
seen them.
guitars?
Yeah. They kind of got that vibe. It looks like a Brian Setzer font almost on their logo, right?
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah. So,
that might be my perception of it, but yeah, I'm familiar with them. Like, and
they have this hollow model called the Romeo, right? And I had seen pictures of it on Reverb and thought, wow, that's a really interesting guitar. And I didn't give it much thought until I went to 30th Street Guitars in Manhattan, and there was one sitting there. And Dave, I picked it up, and immediately it was just like, oh, wait, this is mine. This is wow, this is my guitar. I don't have any money, but I can't leave this here. This is mine.
Yes, I totally.
You know,
yep.
And that's when you find a way to make it happen. And I made it happen, and that's probably my go-to now. It's awesome.
And yeah, they are, and some of the other like the solid bodies for those Eastmans, they got pretty wicked, like little misshaped shapes. You know what I mean? Like, they're just slightly like angled in like a cool surfer looking way. I don't know.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
They're great. If you're gonna get, I mean, we can sit and talk guitars all day.
I know, but that's the problem.
if someone wants to get a brand new, affordable, really well built workhorse of a guitar, go with Reverend.
You know what? I just okay, my buddy Boris, he plays in a band called Boris and the Joy. He's also a New York cat. Do you know Boris? Boris Pelt? Okay, he played in the band Go Go Bardello for a bit. And
God, they're great.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, no, incredible. But Boris was their lead player for a bit, and he also did a bunch of musicals and stuff. But anyway, the thing I love about this dude is he does all these big, what he calls mercenary gigs, right? So he's he was in some band that was opening for Billie Eilish that was like a Nickelodeon based band, so he's doing big shows, and then. But his whole passion is his own thing. So in between all this, he's booking tours, just playing small DIYs wherever he can start sharing his own shit and making his own trail. And so we Sea Level, we've played with Boris a bunch of times, maybe 2 times now. Yeah, that's almost a bunch. But anyway, he's super awesome guy, and just the passion to be doing your own thing is super. Despite all these other rad gigs, is super, I think, important. But anyway, I bring that up as we were playing a gig with him, and I got a Epiphone ES39, sparkly blue one, kind of looks like a Dave Grohl-esque blue, you know what I mean, but a little lighter. Anyway, I break his string, and Boris is like, oh, you can use mine, because I got all these open tune guitars, because we play all these wild open tune things, and like, so he lends me his, and he has his like workhorsed out, so it's like he's got like the bass strings with its own pickup to like go through a bass amp and be like octaved below, so it sounds like he's playing with a bass player. Yeah, and like he's got this crazy rig, and my bass player looks at me as soon as I start playing it like, man, Dave's not even gonna know how to work that thing. And I was like, okay, I think it's working. And then as soon as I go, I'm like, fuck, I'm only hearing the bass strings. I plugged in the wrong input. Like,
oh man.
But I bring that up, and then the next day he's, next week or so, he's featured on Reverend Guitars, and they're giving a little spiel about like his music and kind of showing what his like Reverend does. And like, but it played amazing. It's versatile. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
They're so good. They're so well built. And one of the main guy at Reverend, Ken Haas, is just super, super sweet. They're just, I can't say enough good things about Reverend guitars. They're great. I have a Reverend 12 string, and you know what they say about 12 strings. You spend half the time tuning it and the other half the time being out of tune, right? Well, this thing, this is the most solid 12-string electric I have ever touched. It stays in tune. It's just so solid, and it sounds so damn good. I can't say enough good things about Reverend guitars. Anybody listening to this, I'm not going to throw shade on Fender or Gibson or Epiphone or Squier, but for the money, get a Reverend.
Free plug here, Reverend. Sponsor us. That'd be so sick. But before we kind of run out of time, let's talk about this new record, man.
Yeah.
So self-titled, and like, what? Just kind of jumping in. Why self-titled now?
That's a good question. It just kind of felt like with this record, it kind of felt like, God, I don't want to sound pretentious, but it was kind of like, okay, we're just going to erase everything and start fresh. We're going to clean the slate musically. And we brought in another guitarist named Chris Robertson. And Chris and I met playing in this, we played off and on in this sort of super group called Gramercy Arms. And that's where Chris and I met. And we ended up playing together one night, and it was great. We had a really wonderful time. We had great conversations. He's a great guy. And so our guitarist had moved to Berlin, and most of the stuff that I write is for two guitars. And we did it for a while with just me on guitar, and that was fine. But I met Chris and invited him to come along, and it clicked. And several of Chris's compositions are sort of cornerstones on this new record. He played an enormous part in the production of the record. It's been great playing with him. It's really changed things. And I also started playing pedal steel again with the band, which I had never really done before because there was so much going on musically that I put a bunch of pedal steel on our first record. But after that, I just kind of focused on guitar composing, so on and so forth. But for this, I got real inspired and had a new pedal steel built for me.
Okay. So, okay. Yeah. Like to kind of dive into that. Cause I remember diving into the pedal steel stuff when we in our first conversation. And I had a really interesting side conversation with this guy. We were talking about vintage guitars. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and he asked what I played, and anyway, wait. So like pedal steels were brought up. I'm like, oh no, I don't play the one with the pedals, but I would love to. They're so expensive. And he's like, how much? I don't know. Like I saw one for $3,000. He's like, that's not expensive. I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, but like, you know what I mean? So okay, so like pedal steel in a way, like I can see where the composition for stuff makes more sense on like on the guitar, because the pedal steel feels like it's just like this kind of this cloud, like that's this beautiful like fog that comes over the composition in a way and just highlights the raindrops going through the sun and makes them glisten. Like it's like this.
That's that's how that's the function of the instrument that I love the most. Is what you just said.
It just
Yeah.
highlights everything in such a beautiful way. But anyway, so how did you like how did you customize this pedal steel for this?
Oh, okay. Well, basically, um, hang on. Let me go back here. So I played the same pedal steel for almost 25 years.
Okay.
I had a Fessenden Universal 12.
Okay.
And do you know what a Universal 12 is?
So the 12 strings, right?
Yeah. Okay. So most pedal steels are a double neck.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And each neck is 10 strings.
Right.
The front neck is an E9. The back neck is a C6. So a Universal 12 is an extended E9 12 string where one of the knee levers, the one that lowers your E's to E flats, essentially turns the tuning into a B6.
Okay.
And so you can do all of the stuff that you would normally do on a double neck
Without it.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Right. So that's what I played for about 23, 24 years, I guess. And that instrument had gone with me all over the US, all over Europe. It's all I knew, like I had never really, I had a beginner model when I first started, but that was the only pedal steel that I had ever really known. And there was a company called Zoom Steel. Had you ever heard of them? Well, the main guy, as far as I know, they are no more. But the main guy builds pedal steels to your specs for you. And so there were certain knee lever and foot pedal configurations that were specific to the instrument that I had been playing all those years. And I wanted to make damn sure that that my new instrument was set up the same way. So that's when I say it was, built to my specs. I had it custom built. So yeah, I just sent him what I wanted the instrument to do, and he built it, and it's awesome. It's light. It sounds phenomenal. To be honest, it sounds a lot better. A little brighter, a little more, how shall we say, hi-fi than the instrument that I had played all those years. So I got really inspired by that and could actually hear pedal steel on a lot of the tracks on this new record. So
it's a beautiful.
Yeah, that's how it happened.
Got it. It's a beautiful record, man. It continues on. I think what you guys have done before, and like what I love about what you guys do, right? And like you have there's a sonic space that the Institute installs when you listen to it. Like, and as soon as I'm listening to one of your records, I'm kind of in this space, and it's a direct effect of what you guys create as a group. And it's kind of like every time I listen to your playing, the notion from Miles Davis of the notes that you don't play. The notes that are played are the notes that I'm misquoting it at the moment, but that whole like kind of wisdom of the right melodic notes are right here, and this is all that needs to be here, and there could be a million things, but the one that means the most is being said right now, is the kind of like takeaway I get from your playing.
Space is more.
Yeah, yeah. And
Wow, that is an incredibly kind thing for you to say. Wow,
but
that means the world to me.
it's an amazing record, and you're an amazing player. And like, it's not, and I'm not,
Oh.
I mean, we're friends, and like, I'm not just, but every time I listen to you, I'm reminded of that, and not in like the sense where like, some people play spacey to get spacey, but I mean, like, this is an honest, what's being said is what needs to be said. And like how the pedal steel in this like accompanies the melodic like lines, and just like, and now that I know it's another player in there too, like hearing that, like how you guys are like, one thing, it sounds like it, since this guy you're playing with now can handle a bit more, it opens up the door more for you to do in other aspects. Is that kind of what you've experienced going through this?
That is, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Chris Robertson is his name, and man, Chris is one of the best musicians I've ever played with. He is the real deal. Um, you would die if you saw his pedal board.
Yeah. Oh God.
Oh my God, it's incredible. He's got this beautiful big robot of a pedal board. But you know how some players, I mean, we have to be honest about the fact that some players uh, will have these really big pedal boards with all of this gear on it, and they use it to sort of overcompensate for the fact that they can't really, you know,
Yeah.
not Chris. He's like Nels Klein in that
Nah.
he he's a phenomenal player, but he has his rig down to where it really is like a painter's palette for him. He uses it so tastefully and masterfully. He's a real force in nature.
One,
It keeps me on my toes.
well, that's awesome too. You want to be playing with those
Yeah,
guys, you know? And
absolutely.
it's even
Yeah.
cooler when that type of player can be in your project. You know what I mean? Because like sometimes
Oh,
your
yeah.
project I shouldn't say just you, but the individual project is so specific. Trying to find someone just to like be able to serve the song is like kind of what you set the bar to. But to find someone that serves the song, but only and amplifies like the musicianship and like, what I mean,
Hmm.
excitement. It's a whole nother level. Another thing going back, because I wanted to ask you about this song in particular, but going through like, to me, and maybe it's like a weird like kind of like a side effect of Richard Thompson's like playing in a way, is like melodically it's like an instrumental, like I'm trying. I also get like this kind of songwriting inspiration from listening through to your tunes, and like the last track on the record, her memory. Let me like say it right. Her memory will be a blessing.
May her memory be a blessing. Yeah.
Is like like there's no words, but I feel like there is, and like in a weird, kind of an amazing, like
Hmm.
the metaphor is up for the teaches more in a sense, like
Oh.
you kind of like in a way installed that by just like so I guess like I mean, and probably intentionally, but this is me reading into it for the last couple weeks here, like, but so with that in mind, when you're naming songs or writing these songs, is there a narrative that's playing in your head? Is there or inspiration in that sense of a story that's being told? And what would the story
Sometimes,
for that song
definitely.
be?
Well, it's funny. That song was written by our bassist, Mr. Dave Motamed.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, he wrote that And we had been working on that piece for a long time. There were so many different kind of versions that got worked up around kind of the core composition that he had done. I wish that I could speak for him. I'm not exactly sure what Dave was getting at when he named it that.
Okay. But as far as like, so
we can call him. Let's call him.
Man, that would be kind of fun though.
That would be.
But that's just like, I don't know, the atmosphere like you guys make as a group. Like I think, at least for me, puts me in that headspace where like I'm like maybe just more creatively encouraged by where I'm at, because like listening, like getting ready to talk with you about this one in particular and listening to it like throughout the week, I'm working on all these projects and sending all this stuff and like just kind of like find myself in that zone in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. The other one I had a question and wanted to know if that was a similar kind of narrative or something in mind. And this may be another Dave song. I don't know. But the second tune on the record, He Died in Spain. Or He Died Fighting.
He died fighting in Spain. Yeah, I wrote that.
Okay, so that one you could tell me if.
Yeah, sure. Man, Dave, this is hard. I don't really know.
That's totally fine too. It doesn't have to be if there isn't.
The name came to me. I love that name, and that piece just kind of happened one day. And the way that I write is very accidental. I'll sit down and just start noodling, and I'll hear something and go, oh, let me see if I can follow that. And sometimes it's very, very easy and it just kind of happens. And then other times I'll have these little sort of pieces, parts floating around for a while. But if I remember correctly, that one happened really fast. I sat down and that sort of main riff, I just kind of played it somehow. And after that, the rest of it really fell into place very quickly.
It is always a wild like thing when it all works out, or when you get the bite and you're like, this could work out, and you just try a million combinations and none of the equations add up to the little hook or little bit you came up with. Oh yeah, like I as you're telling me that, I'm going through a few in my head, like I never finished that one.
Yeah. Until one does.
Yeah. And then you kind of
exactly. I have on my phone, the
notes app
voice.
Yeah.
I have so many, like I'll go through and look, and I'll hit play and it'll be just me jotting down a guitar idea. And I'll think, oh, I forgot all about that. I can't remember how to play that. Like, I just totally forgot what I was doing. And that happens to me a lot. That's always very disheartening, but I guess it's called being human.
True. Well, John, I always look forward to talking with you, man. It's
my God,
I always
Dave.
leave inspired and with a smile. So thank you so much for reaching out to me, man. I'm glad we can make this work.
Thank you. I feel so sad that I wasn't able to catch up with you when you were in New York.
Oh yeah,
a couple of months ago. I'm so sorry that couldn't work out.
Next time, I'm going to try to make it out there again. I played a.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig of the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.